Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, that's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. I'll let you know why in a minute.
You can follow me at Kenny McGee on the Twitter and at Kenny_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WAR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday for a sneak peek right here on YouTube. The audio version you can catch at War on Anchor, once again, at WARR on Anchor. We are available on podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. So you can catch our podcast versions there. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, for more details. And you can follow us on all social media accounts. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. Before we get started, Lakeena, for those of you listening exclusively on our audio page, our audio version, and you can see behind me, those of you watching obviously on YouTube, I have two White Sox jerseys that I ordered a couple of weeks ago. It arrived to my house. There's the Frank Thomas Southside jersey and the Tim Anderson softball starlight jersey. For those of you who like to check out the further pictures, you can go to my Twitter page at CK80. It's the first tweet pinned at the top. Because first of all, I am of course going to the Cubs Sox game this coming Saturday at Wrigley Field, the Holy Cathedral, as we Sox fans call it, that dump. I know a couple people there are going already. I'll let you know who that is in a minute. But I needed help from White Sox Nation, everybody who's a White Sox fan. Even if you're not a White Sox fan, as long as you're not a jerk, you can vote too. So vote in the comment section, but on both Twitter and Instagram at CK80. Once again, at CK80 for both Twitter and Instagram. Voting ends this Friday at 11 p.m. Chicago time. Once again, voting ends at 11 p.m. Chicago time this Friday. So put your vote in the comment section of both my pages. Should I wear the Frank Thomas or the Tim Anderson jersey? It's just that simple. Folks are coming in hot and heavy already. So if you're voting on Twitter, it's the first tweet pinned at the top. You cannot miss it. So thank you very much for your support already. For those of you who haven't voted yet, please go vote at SidKid80 on Twitter and SidKid80 on Instagram. And I know one person who's going already, friend of the show. She's doing her thing in Oklahoma City. That's Miss Brittany Tulis. I'd like to shout her out. Friend of the show. She'll be there in attendance on Saturday. Hope to meet you in person, Brittany, again before or after the game. And shout out to, we didn't get a chance to link up, but she was in the building. As I said in our last episode, I was at the Sox games this weekend. Christine Manica from KX, or if I said it right, KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She was in the building on Saturday watching Sox and Indians. I was there too. I was there on Sunday as well. We reviewed that series with the White Sox in just a moment. So shout out to both the ladies, friends of the show.
Oh yes, well yeah. Well, hopefully say hello to Brittany for me if you see her this weekend. All right, sis.
We'll do.
Yeah. So let's get right to it because we have a lot to talk about today on this early. It is first day of August. Well, first week of August, first show of August, I should say. The White Sox, we'll start with them first. I don't want to say struggles because it's a long season. You're gonna have little hiccups here and there. Now they got they won 2 out of 3 against Cleveland. Kind of putting them in the rearview mirror. They're now, as of this recording, 9.5 up. Brian Goodwin. I mean, good grief. I mean, the fact that it even got to that point, I mean, it's just sort of weird. He had the cool backflip, the walk-off home run, to break the tie, and they ended up winning the series, which they needed to because, they would have lost the series if they didn't. So they just know they had that weird 12-11, lost that weird, heartbreaker 12-11 on Saturday night. And then they won, the Friday matinee at 6-4. But again, you know what? Look, you do what you're supposed to in these series. You got Kimbrel had some of his struggles, but looked really good on Sunday. Tepera had his struggle too, but he looked really good. in the matinee series, and for this part anyway. So Sid, what do you think? I mean,
Mhm.
The hitting was good, everything's starting to mesh, Eloy had to rest, just a whole lot of weird stuff going on. So what do you think, Sid? What did you think of this series with the Indians for the White Sox?
I'll start off with Saturday's game. Of course, I was there, and the electricity with 36,000 people in that ballpark was tremendous. Even though the Sox came up short after the bullpen blew it. Sebi Savala, shout out to him. His first three major league home runs were his first three at bats. You got to be kidding me, including that grand slam early in the game. That place was up for grabs. But during that game, the bullpen didn't have it. Michael Kopech didn't have it. Ryan Tepera, who I think is going to be fine eventually, he struggled in his first two outings as a member of the White Sox, both the Friday game and the game last Saturday. But as you mentioned, Craig Kimbrell, he's proven his worth right now. And I like, as we said, we talked about in our last episode with Jordan Lazowski, our good friend from Sox on 35th. That's a perfect setup for that bullpen for the White Sox. You have Kopech, Tepera, and then Kimbrel and the setup of Liam Hendricks. You can't beat that. But Kimbrel has been doing the job so far. He got a nice ovation both days from the fans here in Chicago, and he did his thing. One reliever that had a good game on Sunday that got unnoticed was Aaron Bummer. Now, does this put pressure on Aaron Bummer to do his best? Because if he doesn't, he's been given chance after chance throughout this whole season. He's been inconsistent. If you're Aaron Bummer, you must show your stuff now, because if you don't, you'll be left off the playoff roster.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why he had such a great outset. Because I think he realized, oh wait, we got Tepera now, we got Craig Kimbrel, we got like
Hmm.
veteran, relievers, of course, Kimbrel being a closer. I think he kind of, that wakes you up and say, oh, wait a minute, I better get my act together before I get
Hmm.
left out of the cold in the playoff roster. So look, I think Bummer probably looked the best he's looked all season. So, and look, I know you're not a big fan of his, Sid, but I think that, look, I think he did what he needed to do, what he did what he's supposed to do. And look, the Sox did what they had to do, was win the series against the Indians to kind of put them in the rearview mirror. Now, they're in the middle of their series against Kansas City. It starts tonight. For those of you who are going to listen to this on Tuesday, tomorrow, that's 7:10 tonight. I should say that's 7:10. So no reason why. I know you had trouble getting the Royals in Kansas City last week, losing 3 out of 4, but you can kind of do a little payback and a little get back. Then of course we'll get to it on Friday with the weekend series against the Cubs. Then after Minnesota, you got 4 against New York. They're starting, to look, pretty good. Also to Oakland and also to Tampa Bay, and also to at Toronto. We'll talk about Toronto a little later on, how they looked
Hmm.
in their first games back in Toronto. So starting to get a little bit, getting a little, harder with the scheduling. So this is sort of like a positioning thing for the White Sox. But again, going back to the Cleveland series, I mean, look, they did what they had to do. You're 62-44 as of this recording. You're 9.5 up on the Indians to kind of put them away. You're going to win the divisions. It's actually too early to do the whole magic number thing, but they are going to win a division. The White Sox are, unless they completely collapse, which I don't think they. There's no reason why they should, but. Look, this team has looked really good. Now, again, we'll see how they do against the teams I mentioned later this month, but you really can't complain too much right now if you're a White Sox fan. You made some good trades too, and not having to give up a couple of your top prospects. So I gotta think you gotta think looking up for White Sox fans. I think.
Yeah, and plus you're getting your key guys back in the coming weeks, because we talked about Eloy last week. I know he was on the shelf for the weekend series against Cleveland because he had a hamstring problem. Hopefully he'll bounce back soon. Luis Robert, he may be back sooner than we think. Uh, well, stay tuned for that. Of course, Yasmani Grandal is supposed to be back at the end of the month. I know Zach Collins has been up and down in terms of hitting, but do you really want him starting as your catcher come playoff time? Not yet. I know Sebi Sabala has been swinging a hot stick lately, but do you trust him to be a starting catcher in the playoffs? Not yet. He's new, so he has to learn his ropes and learn the ways of playing Major League Baseball. So when you get Yasmani Grandal back behind the plate, hopefully by the end of this month, the things should be set at catcher. Now, as we said before, Lakeena, in the last few episodes, this is the month of August. These are the dog days. You get your guys back, and you facing tougher teams. They need to be tested, and Tony La Russa is going to have these guys ready, because this is playoff baseball. You facing playoff caliber teams minus Minnesota, Kansas City, and some of the other teams they have on the schedule for this month. But uh, getting most of your guys back is great. They need to learn how to play playoff baseball right now, and it starts right now with the toughest month of the season because, as you mentioned, it's a long season, and the Sox I think got a taste, just a little bit of taste of that last weekend against Cleveland. They'll get a little bit of it against Kansas City, even though you should sweep them. But before you head up north to face the bad guys in the friendly confines this weekend, even though they have a AAA roster on paper, those games between them and the Cubs are legendary. So you have to be ready for that.
Oh no, not absolutely. And look, you always throw the records out the window when the two teams play each other. So look, I'm sure. Look, I know it's a AAA roster right now for Cubs fans, but I'm sure those guys, Ross will have those guys ready. So we'll get to the Cubs in a little bit. But finishing up our conversation with the White Sox, is there anybody on the team that you're worried about at this point, or is it just look, you're going to the dog days of summer, you got about a couple of months left in the season. I think this sort of the schedule could get a lot tougher in starting next week. So is there anything, is the hitting concerning you? Is the pitching a little bit, concerning? I know some of the starters have not had, good outings the last, maybe within the last, couple of starts, but is there anything that really kind of, sort of you're a little freaked out by?
Yeah, Dallas Keuchel, and I was there on
Yeah.
Saturday. He looked good at the first three and a half innings, but during the fourth, the fifth, and the top of the sixth for Cleveland, he just didn't have it, and that's been the trend over his last 4 or 5 starts. Number 2, Dylan Cease.
Yeah, he did not. No, he did
Yeah,
not look good at all.
yeah, his last start wasn't good, and I think he still has the best stuff on his staff, but he's restored on his last couple of starts. And number 3, Brian Goodwin. Yes, he had the game winner on Sunday, and it was exciting to see, but
Mhm.
his play in right field on Saturday was just terrible. Adam Engel, I'm not gonna put him on this list, but I thought he had a bad angle on one of those fly balls out there, but he's brought value to the team. But the 3 guys that I'm concerned about right now is Brian Goodwin, Dallas Keuchel, and Dylan Cease. We talked about this with Jordan Lazowski in our last episode last week. Who's your top 3 starters if the White Sox if the playoffs should start today for the White Sox? Clearly, it's Lance Lynn. I believe it's Giolito number 2.
Yep.
Number 3 is Carlos Rodon. And you thought Dallas Keuchel would be a shoo-in for that third start at the beginning of the year, but that's not the case right now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be sort of the thing where hopefully they can get together, and it's just maybe it's just hey, a typical season and a long season, and you're kind of making adjustments. And look, I'm not worried if by their next start, Keuchel and Cease have follow up with some really bad starts that's even worse than their last I mean, yeah, you may have a cause for concern.
Yeah, so and it should be interesting for this month of August for the Chicago White Sox. Right now, we're gonna bring on friend of the show. He's a sports reporter and editor at News Radio 780 and 105.9 WCKG, WBBM News Radio in Chicago. He's our good friend and Cubs fan, not to rub it in, but Mr. Brad Robinson. Brad, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Where can people follow you on the social media circuit?
Twitter, you can follow me at Brad Robinson 8.
All right, Brad. We'll get to the White Sox, your opinions on the White Sox later, but we brought you on here first to talk about the Cubs. We had you on doing our preview show before the season started, and we asked you the question: who was going to stay, who was going to go. Of course, Craig Kimbrell was one. He was the last to go, one of the last players to go for the Cubs. He went to the White Sox, but Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, and Anthony Rizzo all packed their bags at the same time. As Lakeena, her tears for all your fans out there. Brad, did you expect a total house cleaning? I didn't expect it. I expected Craig Kimbrell to go and maybe Baez or Bryant, but I didn't expect a full cleaning house. I'm not a Cubs fan, but this was a total shock to me.
Yeah, I think it was expected that Chris Bryant was going to end up being traded if they weren't competitive. Kimbrell and Chafin and Tepera, all those relievers were a very good bet to get traded. Rizzo and Baez surprised me a little bit. I think everybody thought Rizzo was kind of going to be a lifer here. So that surprised me a little bit. Javi, I know there's, giving Javi a big extension. He's a great player. It's a little questionable though, because so much of what he does is based on his outstanding athletic ability. So when he loses a little bit of a step there, he's not a guy with great plate recognition. He's not he's a guy that once he slows down a little bit, it's going to show a lot. So I understand. I think I was expecting of the position players him to be the second most likely to go. Rizzo surprised the heck out of me. I thought eventually they'd let the season play out and they'd figure it out on a contract extension. But losing all three in a 24-hour window, that is it's pretty jarring for Cubs fans, and frankly, they have a right to be pretty upset about it.
Yeah, and if you read Tom Ricketts' statement afterwards, just stick it in the Cubs fans' hearts. I mean, come on, it would hurt a lot less. It's just absurd. But what about the prospect that they got? I mean, they got some pretty good ones. Fortunately, the Giants were able to keep some of their top guys, in the Bryant deal. So, do you see some upside with some of these, prospects that they have coming back?
Well, they're young. They're pretty much all in the lower levels of the minor leagues, which is either rookie ball or A ball. A couple sprinkled in who might be in Double A or Triple A. Obviously, Madrigal is a major league ready piece, but these prospects, it's hard to tell because you don't get a chance to watch a lot of them play. The people who do watch them tend to vary quite a bit on where they rank. They didn't get these big top 100 prospect types, but like I said, they're lower level minors, so they very well could build into that. MLB Pipeline and Fangraphs have two very different opinions of this haul, but both agree that the Cubs rebuilt their system with all these deals. Now, whether that comes out to play their prospects for a reason, a lot of them won't pan out. Some of them might. It's all a crapshoot, but Fangraphs says they added 4 of their top 10 prospects through these deals, and this includes the Darvish deal going back to the preseason. 11 of their top 30 prospects came out of these deals. MLB Pipeline isn't quite as impressed. I think they brought in their 6th, 7th, and 8th top organizational prospects, and then a bunch in the 11 to 30 range. But Fangraphs thinks they got the organization's 2nd, 3rd, and 7th best prospects. So there's no doubt the top part of their farm system was undoubtedly rebuilt through this. Whether they pan out, we'll see.
Brad Robinson from Newsradio 780 105.9 FM in Chicago. Friend of the show is joining us here on Second City Sports. Sid and Lakeena here with you. Brad, let's go back to GM Jed Hoyer. Of course, this is going to be under his tenure now, with Theo now working with the front office in Major League Baseball. Of course, I heard some projections. If you listen to Chicago Sports Radio over the weekend, some people that may have them back in contention by 2023, 2024, may even 2025. I wanted to ask you, how long do you think this will how long do you think that Cubs fans will give Jed Hoyer the rope to turn this around? How much time do you think that he has? Is it 2 years, 3 years? Well, because I think this year, like I said, this year is a wash, perhaps maybe next year's a wash as well. But do you think 2023 is the target date, or will it be a little bit later?
I think if the fans are going to be appeased at all, and I don't think they will ever be appeased with losing those 3 guys they lost, because they just mean so much to the organization. Yeah. So if you can have these new guys come in and win a World Series in 2023, I think overall the fan base will have a still not great feeling about the situation, because Javi Baez and Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo, that was the team that they've all waited their whole lives for, right? Mm-hmm. So to appease the fans might be an impossible task no matter what. I think it's reasonable to expect them to maybe be competitive by 2023 or 2024, but a lot depends on that. Is there going to be a lockout because the collective bargaining agreement is up after this season? There very well could be a work stoppage. How active are they going to be in free agency? We don't know what they're planning to spend in free agency. If they plan to spend it all, you could certainly speed up the process by going out and buying some top flight players, but who can trust they're going to do that, right? So it all depends on the actual development of these guys who are in their late teens and early 20s. So putting a timeline on it right now is really difficult, especially with the collective bargaining agreement coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think those are the two wild cards. I think if we can
Mhm.
all agree on that. So let's go to some happier stuff for a second, because
With
I
the
think
Cubs.
well no not with the Cubs. Oh no, I'm talking about the Bears for a second. The Bears started training camp to go into week 2. A lot of buzz going on. Both Andy Dalton and also to Justin Fields. They looked really good so far. The defense has looked really good. So what are your sort of observations, your synopsis for the Bears season coming up? Seems to be a lot of optimism here.
Yeah, well, there's reason for optimism, but unlike the Cubs, I'm not so sure the optimism, or I should say, like the Cubs, I'm not so sure the optimism should be geared towards this season specifically. I think the Bears have a pretty bright future, and Justin Fields has been really impressive, both on and off the field. He's saying all the right things. He's making all the right moves. He looks like they might have found a really good player. And Andy Dalton has come in and done a really nice job of kind of taking him under his wing and understanding his role in this whole thing. So, the Bears quarterback situation has never really looked better moving forward. But again, we'll see how things go when the games start. There's a ton of reason for optimism there. Darnell Mooney, I think that guy's going to have a big year. Especially having a little clearer path to getting the ball more frequently now. I really like what he's going to bring to the table. So I think there should be reason for optimism, but cautious optimism. It's a very difficult schedule this year, very difficult. And you got a brand new quarterback learning the league, learning the system, learning his teammates, and he might not even start. He's not likely to start right off the bat either. So there's a steep learning curve. I think you're going to see a great improvement. Maybe not elite status yet, but the future's pretty bright at Hallis Hall right now.
Sticking with the Bears offense, David Montgomery is going into year 3, and Matt Nagy, he's not a coach that likes to run the ball a lot. Of course, I know that's the Bears' identity throughout their history. And of course, the Bears looked good last year, so especially after all the injuries to the offensive line. They finally ran the ball, and that's what helped them get into the playoffs. Do you expect that same formula to continue this season whenever Justin Fields gets on the field, or do you think Matt Nagy will go back to his old stubborn ways and not run the ball as much?
Well, I think a lot of that depends on Justin Fields, right? Is he able to carry out Matt Nagy's game plan the way Nagy wants him to carry it out? Because, remember when they went back to running the ball last year, a lot of that was because, Trubisky couldn't carry out that game plan properly, right? So they had to kind of get the ball out of Trubisky's hands. If Fields turns out to be the quarterback we think he might be, and he can make these passes over the middle, he can make the deep throws, you might see them really shying away more from the running game the way Nagy would prefer it. But, that running the ball more thing, that was all out of necessity. That wasn't so much out of choice.
And then he'll insult the media talking about you don't know football.
That's right. You don't know. I don't have a quarterback
right?
that can run my system, but you don't know football.
You don't know football. Exactly. Let's go to the defense for a second, Brad. They're a year older. Hicks is coming off of an injury. Roquan Swift has looked great. Eddie Goldman's back, but you don't know how he looks, after opting out last year. Do you think this defense is capable of being like that top 10, top 15 defense that we've seen the last few years?
Well, they lost a huge part of that defense in Kyle Fuller. You can't undersell how important that guy is, especially in today's NFL. So pass heavy, to have that lockdown corner. And that is really, really hard to find. And you can't really make up for that once you lose a guy like that. So they're going to hurt there. I think a bounce back from Robert Quinn could do a lot to help the pass rush, which was missing quite a bit last year because Quinn gave them nothing. So, we'll see. I think top 10 is probably realistic. Maybe top 15, definitely not top 5. I don't think without Fuller. That guy was a real dude.
Going back to the Bears offense, I think we mentioned earlier, Lakeena, Allen Robinson. Of course, I said on this program last year that he was going to get franchise tag. That happened, but both sides couldn't come to an agreement as of yet as far as a long contract extension. Do you think that Allen Robinson stays here for the long haul, or do you think we are looking at him for the last time this season in the Bears uniform?
Well, I think it's pretty likely this will be the last season in a Bears uniform. I feel like if they would have come to a contract agreement on a long-term deal, that probably already would have happened, right? Because you would have wanted this year on that deal
Right.
Hmm.
to get a year off of the back end, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's probably pretty unlikely. I mean, anything's possible, and maybe he, develops a great rapport with Justin Fields and just really likes playing with him. Now, Allen Robinson's never really had a quarterback that he's worked with, right? Throughout his whole
Right.
career,
Hmm.
he's like a top 5 wide receiver in football. He's never had a decent quarterback thrown to him, so maybe his mind changes a little bit if him and Fields, really get off to a good start and have a good rapport. But I think overall, it's probably more likely than not this will be his last year here.
Do you think this year is a make or break for this regime?
No, I think they bought themselves at least a few years with the draft pick of Justin Fields, because they're gonna let Nagy see, they're gonna let Nagy try to develop him. They're going to give him a mulligan
Mhm.
on the Mitch Trubisky thing and all the other quarterbacks they brought in that have been a disaster. And they're gonna see if Justin Fields is the guy that he can be the quarterback whisperer to. And Pace, you know, they basically said, here, Pace, pick the next quarterback. So you're not gonna slice those guys off after a year. You're going to give it a few years to see if it's going to develop. So I think they're probably safer than they were maybe a year ago.
Halfway home with Brad Robinson, friend of the show from News Radio 780 WBBM here in Chicago, right here on Second City Sports. Sid and Lakeena here with you. Brad, let's go back to baseball. Talk about the Southsiders and the Chicago White Sox. They're 9.5 games up on the Cleveland Indians. They took two out of three from Cleveland over the weekend. They made all the moves, and most of White Sox Nation are pleased, including yours truly. Do you think they'll be the favorites come playoff time, or do you think that a team like Houston or Boston, who are improved by getting Kyle Schwarber, do you think they can uh, give the White Sox a scare come the playoff time?
Well, Houston could give them a scare. Houston's been there before. They've done it before. They're an experienced club that's been in the playoffs every year. Boston, they've been in the playoffs quite a bit too, even though they've had their down years and they've had a lot of success. They've been, they've got experienced guys. Even Tampa is a team that's been there before,
Yeah.
even though they're young and cheap. They've all got experience in the playoffs, and the White Sox don't really. So we'll see. However, the White Sox, when they added Craig Kimbrell, they really shortened games, because now at the back end of the bullpen, you have Kopech, you have Kimbrell, you have Hendricks. Those are three guys that are incredibly difficult to get to. If the White Sox get a lead, even with all the injuries with their offense and some of their offensive problems this year, if the White Sox get a lead in the first 6 innings, it's going to be extremely difficult to beat them. And in the playoffs, that plays really well.
We'll see what happens there. So let's go to the hardwood for a second, Brad, and talk Bulls. With NBA, free agency starting. There's some buzz, and maybe there's some interest between Lonzo Ball and the Bulls. Do you think he comes to the Bulls? And if not, who do you think like that point guard would be a good fit for them?
Well, I think Lonzo Ball would be a really good fit for him. But any offer, and it seems like the Bulls are pretty determined to make that happen. And it seems like Ball's interested in, but the Pelicans have a chance to match the offer. Pelicans could also do a sign and trade somewhere with him. So, the ball isn't all in the Bulls' court. They have to kind of hope the Pelicans just have interest elsewhere and let him go in order for that to happen. So I think Lonzo Ball, that would be exciting to have Zach and Vooch and Ball all on the court at the same time. That's 3 legit NBA, like top tier NBA players. The Bulls haven't had a starting lineup like that in quite some time. So that definitely puts them into the playoff conversation in the East. Maybe even one of the top 4 playoff teams in the East. We'll see if that happens. If it doesn't happen, it seems there's some interest in bringing Derrick Rose back. And, Derrick could really help them as well. And I think drafting Io was a big deal as well. It might take him a little longer to get to speed with the NBA game, but he's a guy that impresses me a lot, and I watched him a lot with the Illini. So the Bulls have really remade their roster really quickly, and it's going to be exciting to watch them again for the first time in quite a while.
I couldn't agree with you more. Speaking of Bulls management, Arturas Knisservis and GM Mark Eversley, what else do you think they'll do in free agency? Because we know that Thaddeus Young, there's a decision on him salary cap rise, and Daniel Tice, who I thought was their best defender. He was clearly their best defender from the interior last year. Do you think one or both of those guys will come back? What else do you think the Bulls will do this offseason free agency?
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of that depends on what happens with Lonzo Ball tonight. And what if they're going to add a top tier player to their starting lineup, they're going to have to clear a fair amount of salary space. So I think a good bet for the first guy to go is probably going to be Lowry Markkinen. And then once you get him off the books, that kind of opens the picture up to a little more of like where they can cut, where they can find that cap space. I think it's a really fluid situation. So it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen. I think they have a lot of options though, and they have a lot of flexibility because the money they'd be looking to move off isn't necessarily, starting roster guy money. So they can move a lot of bench pieces and add to the top tier of their roster.
I just want Tice to stay. That's all I want. I just want. Can we give Tice?
Yep.
Can we keep him if nothing else, please? He was such a big, help, defensive wise for the Bulls. Now let's go to the ice, Brad. Since we have you here, the Blackhawks. They traded for the Jones brothers. They gave Seth the contract extension. Marc-Andre Fleury, announced over the weekend that he is in after the trade for the Golden Knights. He wasn't very happy about that, but he is going to play. So, what do you think the chances are for the Blackhawks, this upcoming season? Can they be like a playoff team?
Well, I mean, in the NHL, like half the teams make the playoffs, right? So pretty much It's not like old school baseball, but I'm not overly optimistic. I think Fleury's a nice ad, but when a guy is hesitant to come, you have to question what version of that guy you're going to get. I think Seth Jones is a really nice player. It's a mighty big contract he's got there, though, and we'll see that they just got out from under that Seabrook contract, so bringing in another defenseman that's taken up a big portion of the salary cap in a hard cap league. It ties their hands a little bit going forward, but I overall like Seth Jones. I like the addition of him. I just don't love the contract. And in a hard cap league, it's kind of hard to separate those two things, right? And in baseball, it's easy to say, well, I love this guy and I don't like the contract, but who cares? There's no cap. In the NHL, it's a hard cap. So, I think the Blackhawks still have a ways to go. And with Seabrook's money off the books, which is great, you're also losing Duncan Keith, who is, a long-time guy. And that's another thing that, the Chicago sports fans, we have, hearts for these guys. And when you lose a guy like that, it definitely signals the end of an era. So, we'll see with the Blackhawks. I'm not overly optimistic. Maybe they can squeeze in. I don't think they've done enough to make themselves one of the Stanley Cup contenders, though.
Last moment too with Brad Robinson from WBBM Newsradio here in Chicago, right here on Second City Sports. Sid and Lakeena with you. Last question from me, Brad. Going back to baseball, let's go back to the Cubs. Manager David Ross is at the helm right now. It depends on what the Cubs do in the next offseason too. Do you think that David Ross will be the manager to lead the Cubs into this transition in the next couple of years, or do you think we'll see like a Ricky Renteria type of situation?
Well, I think with a lot of the guys from the 2016 team now gone, except for Contreras and Hendricks, everybody's gone. So I think they'd like to kind of see what David Ross can do without that buddy aspect of the roster, right? Now you're going to be bringing in guys that don't know David Ross from the next manager. They don't have the long-term relationship. And I think they want to see kind of how David Ross develops those guys and how he works there. I could definitely see him, if he speeds up the window a little faster than they expect, they could very well say, well, this is the guy that we always thought he was. This is our guy. We want to keep him on for long term. If things really stall out, maybe they make a change based on pressure, but they still very much believe in David Ross as a top tier Major League Baseball manager. They just haven't really given him the tools yet to show that he's that.
Yeah, going to be very interesting. So last question for me, I want to talk about Zach LaVine. He's doing very well over in Tokyo in the Olympics right now. He did an interview with Brian Windhorst. He said he wants respect when it comes to his contract extension. So do you think he and the Bulls can work things out? There are some people that said that maybe he might go to one of the LA teams since he's from LA. He's apparently he's also said that he's he and KD, Kevin Durant, have become pretty close. People are already talking about maybe he'll end up going to Brooklyn, which I don't know how they're going to do that because they have the room for it. But what do you think what's going to happen with LaVine, after next season?
Well, that's a really good question, and I don't have a good answer for it. I mean, if we follow NBA trends, right, the best players team up. That's just the way the league works. It's worked that way for the last 20 years. So I could definitely see him wanting to chase a ring somewhere else. We'll see how it goes. Maybe he develops a really good rapport with Vooch and they become a really solid 1-2 punch that gives the Bulls a legit championship opportunity. Who knows? But yeah, I don't see them coming to a big contract extension before the season, unless they have to do a lot of financial maneuvering to make additions that they weren't expecting, or maybe weren't able to shed some salaries here or there. And it's all just about moving within the cap. But if I'm LaVine, I'm waiting until after the season to sign any kind of deal, and then making my own choice on my own future. So I'd be surprised if a long-term deal gets done before he becomes a free agent, because he's unrestricted after this year. So if you're a player, aren't you waiting for that?
Of course.
Yeah.
I would. Yep. Yeah.
Heck yeah, you would.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Zach LaVine. Thank you very much. That was Mr. Brad Robinson from News Radio 780, 105.9 FM here in Chicago. He's a sports reporter and anchor. You can follow him on Twitter at Brad Robinson, the number 8, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You follow him there. Brad, thank you very much for hopping on the program once again. Great job. Let's do this again soon, because I believe good times are ahead for Chicago sports fans.
Very good. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brad. You guys stay safe.
All righty.
Once again, that's Brad Robinson from News Radio 780 WBBM and 105.9 here in Chicago. Lakeena, since we have these last couple minutes left, let's talk about the Chicago Cubs. I know we didn't give our opinions out, and I think Brad brought up a couple of good points. That's why I asked him the question about David Ross. We're going to see how he manages this team now, because this team is in transition, and it's going to depend on how GM Jed Hoyer rebuilds this roster now. We got into it in our last episode, but I kind of like the trade, the acquisitions that they received from the White Sox and that Craig Kimbrell trade with Cody Hoyer as a relief pitcher, and Nick Madrigal, who's not going to play this year due to a torn hamstring. But Nick Madrigal could be a future leadoff hitter for the Cubs, and Cody Hoyer could be a future closer, but he's definitely a solid piece in that bullpen. Remember when the Cubs had that hot streak in the month of May going into early June, their bullpen was tops in Major League Baseball in terms of ERA. Now that you're rebuilding a little bit, Cody Hoyer can lead that charge.
Yeah, I think that those are both good, very good acquisitions, and also too some context here. Craig Kimbrell, said he didn't want to leave Chicago because apparently one of his kids is going through a medical issue right now, and he wanted to stay close. So if he had to be traded, trade me across town. That's what ended up happening. So it actually ended up working out for both sides. Now it's going to be interesting to see, how long will it take for the Cubs to rebuild? I mean, I know Jed Hoyer was making the rounds on sports radio saying that, look, we might, these guys might be back, next season. I don't know how you're going to do that, but, well, again, sort of like lip service, if you will. But, and look, you're not going to be able to sell a 2-3 year rebuild with Cubs fans. You just aren't going to do it. So if your best bet is to hope that they can be eligible, they can be contending by 2023. That way you can wait a year and see how the market is. But also, like Brad said too, baseball might be on, there might be a work stoppage after next season. So I think you got to play part in all that too. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. But I think the future looks bright for the Cubs. It's just going to be a matter of when and how everything kind of maneuvers.
As I said during the interview, for the rest of this season, perhaps most of next season, whether it's a work stoppage or not, let's hope not for a work stoppage, but whoever's on this roster right now, they're going to be learning on the job, just like the White Sox did a few years ago, just like the Astros did a few years ago. So tough times are ahead. But as we talked about before, Lakeena, you're in year 2 of the new Cubs television network with Marquee. How much longer will Cub fans invest in watching this rebuild transition, wherever you want to call it, because if this lasts longer than 2 years, most Cub fans will check out
Yeah, and
and
that's the
go,
one thing
of
you do
course,
not
support the
want.
Sox, but they'll go elsewhere and do something else productive with their time. So this, assuming they don't do anything dramatic as far as free agency is concerned, this is going to the rest of this year, perhaps next year as well. You're going to see some guys learning on the job coming up north.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you do not want if you're a Cubs fan. So I think if you're at this point, you better see if you can perhaps maybe contend, and perhaps you'll have some money to spend after next season. Because if not anything longer, you're not going to be able to buy it. And when it comes to Cubs fans, you're not going to be able to buy that or sell that, I should say, to Cubs fans. So you better hope that things look up and the financials work, and you'll be contending for maybe not next season, definitely not next season, but actually the season right after that, because you're not going to be able to sell anything longer than that to Cubs fans.
Yeah. Second City Sports, you're listening to and watching right here on YouTube at Ward Media, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. Last topic for this segment, Lakeena, let's go back to basketball. Talk about the Chicago Bulls. Free agency has already started. Of course, as of this recording, the Bulls have an offer on the table for point guard Lonzo Ball. That's for 4 years and $80 million. As we reported on our last episode, New Orleans made some trades to clear out cap space for two paths matching. Now, it looks like, according to some reports, they may go after free agent point guard from Toronto, Mr. Kyle Lowry. Let's focus in on Chicago. Will this deal get done with Lonzo Ball? If yes, this definitely improves this team. But assuming that the Bulls get Lonzo Ball, I'm worried about the rest of that roster, Lakeena. We saw what the Milwaukee Bucks did in the NBA Finals. Now they're the champions. You saw what the Phoenix Suns did by getting to the finals. You got to have the right pieces to go around these stars. You just can't plug in just any old player. It just doesn't work that way. Assuming that the Bulls get Lonzo Ball, that's why I asked Brad the question about what's up with Thaddeus Young? What's up with Daniel Tice? I hate to say it, Daniel Tice may not come back here only because he may be priced out of the market. I'm with you, Lakeena, if he's not back. I want him back, but I think the domino effects will fall if the Bulls get Lonzo Ball.
That's why my thinking is that the Pelicans are gonna match the deal, because people need to remember that Lonzo is a restricted free agent. So the Pelicans, with some of the moves they made beforehand, they can match. And there's also rumors, I think you mentioned it earlier, Sid, that they may do a sign-in trade with Lonzo. Have him sign the thing, sign the offer sheet, and then trade him to perhaps the Celtics. To get Kimba. They might do that. I know some people said that maybe they might go for Kyle Lowry to a sign and trade there. You'll send Ball to Toronto. So there's a lot of unknowns here still. And I know there's some, the rumors are there is supposedly mutual interest between the Bulls and Lonzo Ball. But again, you got to admit the financials working. The Pelicans are the Ball's in the Pelicans court, basically. And I just don't see them. Perhaps they may, try to, trade Ball so they can get something back for him instead. I just don't think that's gonna. To me, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think that he's gonna be a Bull. So that leaves some money for them to play around with, which is probably a good thing, because I think I want Tice back. I want the other. I want Troy Brown Jr. back. If we can get him back, I'd rather get those guys back, and perhaps maybe try to get a veteran point guard like a Deontay Murray, or maybe do a sign and trade with Lowry. I know Lowry wants to play for San Antonio, and that's probably a better fit for him. Maybe do a sign and trade with Lowry, and then maybe try to get Murray back in the trade. So there's still a lot of unknowns here with this whole Lonzo Ball situation.
Yeah, as I said in our last episode, Derrick Rose, if you are a fan, I know you are a fan of soap operas, but if you're a fan of a good story, a great comeback, that would work in terms of storylines. But in terms of basketball, Derrick Rose, at this stage of his career, he needs to be on a championship contending team. Whether it's the Lakers, he may get on there for veteran inception. We'll see, but he needs to be on a playoff team, a team like Denver or Philadelphia, or teams like that. They are closer to a championship. As we asked the question in our last episode, has anybody asked the man himself if he wants to come back here to play? Seriously.
There needs to be some mutual interest there from some of the stuff I read over the weekend, that there is definitely some mutual interest between both the Bulls and D Rose. And like we said in the last episode, D-Rose wouldn't have to do much. He's the one, he would kind of be like that veteran presence that this team needs. So I think, look, who knows what would happen there? But again, you never know. I think, look, we know AK and Eversley kind of work like behind the scenes, so there might be, crafting a mood that might be coming out of nowhere. We don't know. So, look, I think all these rumors are just that, rumors, until we get an official, pen to paper of Woj or Shams. If guys like, those guys don't report it first. I mean, I'm gonna treat all this as just speculation at this point.
Yeah, another move that's being speculated right now as we now go around free agency a little bit, wrapping up this first segment. The Los Angeles Lakers, of course, they acquired Russell Westbrook. Now, Taylor Horton Tucker, who's from Chicago, he's a restricted free agent. The Lakers need shooters. And one name that was brought up over the weekend, I was listening to LA Sports Radio, is a hometown guy, Mr. DeMar DeRozan, who should have made the All-Star team last season. Do you think he'll be a perfect fit for the Lakers?
There were rumors about they may try to maybe maneuver some money and reunite him and Kyle Lowry together in Los Angeles. Again, this is just another rumor, but yeah, I mean, I think they need shooters. Lakers do, especially since they gave up a lot of their guys to get Russell Westbrook. I think you're probably going to need maybe a veteran guy like a DeRozan. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, like I've been saying, so I think all this is just speculation at this point now. If you hear, we hear guys, CP3, declined his option, the $44 million player option. Kawhi declined the $36 million option with the Clippers and the Suns, respectively. They're going to come back. I guess they're going to, rework the money, and because of the way the money, works, and some of the money is being maneuvered around. So that's why, those options were declined. They will sign back with their respective teams. Well, Kawhi will. I don't know about CP3. I mean, now do you go to the Lakers and perhaps maybe chase a ring? Do you stay with the Suns? Perhaps maybe try to see if you can get. It's going to be hard to do because you got a lot of these other teams in the Western Conference. They're going to assume they're going to be very healthy again. So you don't know what's going to happen with that. Some other guys might be on the move. You got Dennis Schroeder. Please don't let him come to the Bulls. Please, please, please. I don't need him. That's something that the Bulls don't need. We'll see. I know our buddy Matt Pex is excited that Denzel Valentine and Felicio. Cristiano Felicio will be off the books. Yay. Thank God. But yeah, so a lot of things that we could see happening in free agency.
You mentioned Chris Paul opted out his contract to try to perhaps work out a long-term deal with the Suns. Of course, Kawhi Leonard opted out his deal with the Clippers. Perhaps he's going to say he doesn't have as many options as he did when he was a free agent last a couple of years ago. Right now, Kawhi is going to miss the majority, if not all, of next season. So I think his only option is to sign with the Clippers because he does. Where are you going to go? New York? Anything can happen, but I just don't see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot.
He's not coming to Chicago, folks. I'm sorry. He's not coming here.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, look, it's going to be interesting where he goes. Also, too, Kyle Lowry is a name that's being thrown around. Our girl Alana, she's been saying that the Heat seems to be the front runners, at least according to her people. I mean, that would be Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. That'd be an interesting combo if I heard one. Of course, the Lakers is being rumored. I would love for him to come to the Bulls, but I think just that the financials just aren't there for him to come. He could be kind of like that veteran presence. He has a ring, so he knows what it takes to get that ring. So that'd be nice if the Bulls can make that happen. I mean, I'd be okay with that. But again, there might be a lot of maneuvering, so you may not be able to do that. But I'm just excited to see where these names, are gonna go. I mean, will CP3 go to Phoenix? Will he go to LA? Will he go to an Eastern Conference team? I don't like I said, where the East is gonna go. Is he gonna go to Philadelphia? No. Like you say, he's not coming to the Bulls. That's not happening. Do you go to New York? Do you try to maybe see if you can get in Brooklyn? I don't know.
Yeah, NBA free agency is just like NFL free agency in the offseason. They dominate the headlines, and we're just getting started. So it's going to be interesting to see what moves these teams make as we prepare for the 2021-22 season. Segment number 1 is in the books. Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with Lakeena's Olympic update. We have an injury to a superstar already in NFL training camp, and preseason hasn't started yet. And Would you watch the Super Bowl on pay-per-view? Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. We'll see and hear you on the other side. Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidK80. Once again, it's SidK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Let's kick off the second half of Second City Sports, and get into some pigskin. Are you ready for some football? Of course, preseason. Yep. Of course, preseason action starts next week for the majority of the National Football League. I know that the Cowboys and Steelers have the Hall of Fame game coming up pretty soon. We won't preview that game. That's not going to be much of a preview. We're not going to do it at all. We're just going to watch it along with you. But as we know, Lakeena, at this time of year, there's always going to be a major injury or two in training camp. I mentioned before the break, we haven't started preseason action yet. And there's a big name that's going to miss between 5 and 12 weeks due to a foot injury, and that's Mr. Carson Wentz, the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, as you well know, he was traded from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Indianapolis Colts early in this offseason. Now, Lakeena, at least for the first month, maybe month and a half, Frank Wright, the head coach of the Colts, he's going to be missing his stud star quarterback as the Colts will try to make it back to the playoffs. It seems to me, Lakeena, as we tie this back to Chicago, Nick Foles, he's the replacement. He should be the replacement until Carson Wentz gets back. What are the Bears waiting for? Try to trade for him or just outright release him so Mr. Foles to go join the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, the weird thing about Wentz's injury is, I guess, to repair a ligament, a bone, reval bone from his foot. So the timeline is 5 to 12 weeks. So he could miss we're in like early August now, so he could miss he could be ready by week 1, or he might miss half the season. So we just don't know. And it is sort of weird that the Bears, I should say, aren't making that call to the Colts. Hey, why isn't Ryan Pace calling Chris Ballard saying, hey, you know what? You wanna look, you guys need a quarterback. Nick Foles isn't very capable. He can run that offense at Frank Wright. So let's you wanna name your price. You want like a 6th or 7th rounder or a 5th or 6th rounder. But I mean, look, I think if you're the Colts, you want to try to take a chance on Nick Foles. Look, he kind of held down the fort with Philly, and he led Philly to a Super Bowl. So let's see what happens with that. So I think they want to play it by ear. The Colts do. I don't think they want to make a big move like that for any quarterback. I guess Sam Ehlinger, I think that's he's the rookie from Texas, of course. You may see a lot more of him. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be very interesting, though, I think, because, like you said, like we've been saying, the range is kind of tricky, 5 to 12 weeks, so you don't really know how long Wentz is going to be out. So you don't want to, if you're the Colts, you don't want to waste a late round pick to get Foles when you may not need him. So it's sort of you're sort of like in a tough spot if you're the Indianapolis Colts, because it's really going to be the quarterback. The quarterback play is going to give you a chance to see if the Colts can win the AFC South once we get to our divisional previews. They're pretty much set everywhere else. So I don't know. I mean, the quarterback was sort of the one thing. Frank Wright. They took the plunge and got Wentz from Philly because of the injury issues. Because some other stuff was happening to the Eagles, or they were just sick of him. Then he gets hurt, and now he needs surgery, and now he's going to be out for maybe a month. At the very least 6 weeks. I don't. You're in a tough predicament if you're the Colts right now.
I think if they don't make a move on Nick Foles by the middle of the preseason, even though it's 3 games this year, it pretty much tells me that Carson Wentz may start the regular season on time, or perhaps maybe miss the first 2 weeks. So we'll have to see what happens with the Colts. Right now, they have 2 rookies on the depth chart along with Brett Hundley. We saw that disaster when he was with the Packers. So it doesn't look good, but it gives those guys the opportunity to show what they got. So we'll see what happens with the Colts. As you mentioned, Lakeena, we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago, about a week or so ago. One of the Vikings assistant coaches was let go because he didn't receive the vaccine. Now he's allowed back in the building, but he has to wear a mask and had to work in designated areas. And there's another situation was going on with that organization as well. We talked about this before we started recording. Now let's get to another team that's making news, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, we talked about this we reported this rather on the show about a week or so ago that one of the offensive coaches, assistant coaches, was let go because he didn't want to get the vaccine. Now that he was rehired back, he's supposed to wear a mask now, and he's only supposed to work in some designated areas within the building of the Vikings. Lakeena, and also there was some news that you was telling me about before we started recording regarding head coach Mike Zimmer. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer was not very pleased. If you guys heard the news over the weekend, Kellen Mond tested positive, the rookie quarterback from Boise State. He tested, no, and I might think, tested positive for COVID, and they confirmed that to some various sources. And of course, Kirk Cousins and Nate Stanley, who are the other guys in the depth chart, they were near him, so they're both deemed high risk, close contacts. So now they miss all weekend practice, and they'll have to abide by a 5-day quarantine before they can return to camp. And head coach Mike Zimmer, who is a cancer survivor, is not amused by this. Now it looks like Jake Browning, I think he's a rookie too. Oh no, I think he's a second-year guy from Washington. He is going to have to take the first team snaps because of the fact that they don't have a quarterback right now, and apparently, I guess according to Zimmer, that he doesn't. Some of his players they're not like in like the lower end, but they're kind of like in the middle tier. I think he said that about 70% of his guys are vaccinated, but there are some guys that are very hesitant about getting the vaccine, and he's not very happy with that. With that dealing, and he said, quite honestly, after everything that we went through last year, I'm not surprised one bit. And he said he's disappointed and frustrated, and with all the unvaccinated players. So he's basically said that it is what it is. So I mean, there's gonna be some resistance for some. We talked about it, Sid, a couple of weeks back when this news came out. I guess if you're a Vikings fan, a lot is expected of the Vikings this year. It's better that this happens now instead of in the regular season. I mean, hopefully we won't see this. This won't be a trend, but again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Sid? It's and also too the same things happening with Ron Rivera, who's also a cancer survivor, and he expressed his frustration with Washington. Unfortunately, the Washington football team. So unfortunately, they're in like the lower end of the players that are vaccinated. So he's frustrated, really frustrated about players being hesitant or what have you. So it's just hopefully this won't lead to a big mess, and hopefully maybe guys will get vaccinated. But what do you think about all this, Sid?
Yeah, and of course, don't forget about Cole Beasley and his comments about the vaccination of wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills. And we talked about it on our last couple of episodes. Of course, going back here to Chicago, I believe the Bears roster is 85% vaccinated. If I'm not mistaken, I read that somewhere late last week. So they're okay. But as far as the teams that are not met at the threshold yet, there's going to be a lot of peer pressure among players, and some coach. I know most coaches are vaccinated now, but among the players, we know that things that they talk about in the locker room, they could get heated, and the locker room is a very diverse room full of different ideas, different backgrounds, and things of sort of that nature. So you're going to have very different opinions about it. But at the end, I think the players they're on the fringe, they'll get it because you don't want to let your teammates down. And also, too, as we talked about this before, if you're a player that's on the fringe of making the team, if you didn't get vaccinated, because we know that 25 to 30% of these contracts in the NFL are only guaranteed. So if you didn't get the vaccination, if you're on the fringe, you may get cut. So those guys that are on the fringe that's trying to make the team, they're feeling the pressure already. And so will this trend continue? Who knows? And how big does this get? Because if you're the NFL, you don't want this to turn into a big problem, especially now that even though it's preseason, we didn't have it last year. Fans are going to be returning to these stadiums to watch these games. And so if you're in the NFL, you try to contain it as much as possible. You don't want this to become their big story.
Well, and also too with the rule that they may have to forfeit, especially if it involves an unvaccinated player. They're going to give them a little bit more leeway. If it is a vaccinated player, they'll give a little bit more leeway, probably work out some scheduling. But you don't want to be the reason why your team loses a chance at the division or a playoff spot, because look, the NFL's not going to make the players get vaccinated because union and stuff like that. But again, if you're the reason why your team lost, or your team doesn't get into the playoffs, doesn't win their division, or doesn't get that first round bye, of course only one team can get it. If that forfeits the reason why, you don't want to be that reason. So I think cooler heads will prevail. I think they're going to take extra precautions. I know some guys who are kind of like hesitant of getting the vaccine, I think will probably get the vaccine. I think the numbers will change. I think the number was what I think of all the NFL players. I think that's about 70%, a little over 70, 75%, might be close to 80 right now. So I think that number will go up by, I would give it maybe like the middle of the month. That number will probably get close to 80, 85, I think.
Yeah, and that's what you want if you're the NFL. We all know that all the players are not going to get it, but the majority of players will, if they get it, the restrictions will be lifted. And let's be honest, Lakeena, the players couldn't practice as much as they wanted to last year, especially during this time last year we had no preseason games because you were practicing social distancing. Everybody couldn't be in the building. Some things are back to normal, but not fully back to normal yet. So as long as the players that are on the fringe that are going to get the vaccine, the quicker the things will return back to normal than what they were before last season. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. As we continue to talk about the pigskin, Lakeena, the Fox Sports and the NFL has released their announcing periods for the upcoming 2021 season. Tell us about it.
Yes, they made this news early Monday morning. Of course, we're in early August now. This is the time of year when we're gonna talk about the pairings, various broadcast pairings for some of the networks of both college and pro football. Of course, Fox, posted theirs first. Of course, the top team: Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, and Aaron Andrews. This is going to be Buck and Aikman's 20th season together coming up, and also I believe this will be Aaron's maybe like 8th or 9th season with the team. So also you're going to have Tom Rinaldi. He'll be part of America's Game of the Week, and also Christina Pink. She'll be part of Thursday Night Football. The number 2 team, and we talked about this. Kevin Burkhardt, of course, former Bears and Panthers tight end Greg Olsen, also Pam Oliver. That'll be the number 2 team. Also, number 3, you got Adam Amin, Chicago's very own. 3-time Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth and Shannon Spake. She's new to the team this year. Number 4, you got Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, and I guess they're going to alternate Sarah Walsh and Lindsay Zarniak. I guess they're going to alternate, depending on the scheduling and whatnot. Then you'll have Chris
Bears fans, get ready for that crew.
Yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot.
It won't be the only one, but go on. But get ready to hear that crew.
Chris Myers, Daryl Moose Johnson, also Jennifer Hale. That's the number 5.
Get ready for that crew as well.
Yeah, Kevin Kluger,
if you're a Bears fan.
Kevin Kluger, Mark Sanchez, who will be doing his first season calling games, and also Chicago's very own Laura Oakman will be a part of that crew.
If the Bears think at December, you may get them.
maybe,
That's my wild card.
Well, and you might see this crew too. Apparently, they'll be doing this crew will be doing 6 or 7 games together. Gus Johnson, Akeem Talib, and Megan Olivier, I should say. So you're probably going to be they're going to be doing 6 or 7 games. So I guess when the Fox has double headers and of course at the end of the season, you're probably going to be seeing a lot more of that crew. Look, I know Akeem Talib isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I think definitely brings excitement to it. I think him and Gus Johnson, that might be a little bit too much excitement for some people, but we'll see how they mesh. We'll see how they mesh well together.
Yeah.
Also too, yeah, so the changes aren't exactly overwhelming. I know there's Greg Jennings and Brock Heward. I know, but I think Brock Heward will be part of the college football announcing crew. I don't know what Greg Jennings is going to do. I know Brady Quinn's going to be with them as well. So I think a lot of those guys will probably be going to college football. So, but yeah, what do you think about this list of announcing crew, Sid?
I like it, to be honest with you. Like I said, Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma, they did a couple of Bears games last year, and Jonathan Vilma really impressed me a lot. Of course, he was doing studio work with ESPN and ABC the last few years before last season, joining Fox. So It's another year for him to grow into that role. Him and Kenny Albertson, the great Adam Amin, as you mentioned, Chicago's very own and Chicago Bulls TV voice. And him and Mark Schiller, I gave him rave reviews a couple of times last year during our show. So that they're going to be good. Maybe they'll get a Bears game or two. We'll see as the part of the third team. Now, me personally, I would have put Daryl Moose Johnson next to Kevin Burkhardt to bring in Greg Olson for this season. Of course, Fox had other ideas, but that number two team, I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see how Greg Olson sounds. Of course, he did some work with ESPN the last couple of years of his career during the playoffs, so he knows what he's talking about. I just want to see him call a live game action. Hopefully they'll give that crew a preseason game. We'll see. But I'm interested to see how much time will it take him and Kevin Burkhardt to mesh. And of course, Chris Myers and Darren Moose Johnson, they worked together before a couple years ago, so that they should pick up where they left off. So the announced crew for Fox this year is still solid. Not too many major changes.
Yeah, and I think rumor too, Burkhardt and Olsen, they did a lot of the that one football league, a couple of years ago. Not this past spring, obviously, but not that last spring either, but the spring before. So they actually do mesh well together. So we'll see what they can do. I want to see how Mark Sanchez, what he brings to the table. I know he wanted to do college football games, but of course, ESPN wouldn't give him the opportunity. That's why he left to go to Fox new NFL games. So I'm interested to see how he's going to be with Kevin Kugler. That's Kevin Kugler is a great play-by-play guy, so I think they'll do well together. Like you said, Adam Amin and Mark Schiller. I think Mark Schiller is very underrated. We've heard him on ESPN, so he's very underrated when it comes to play-by-play analyst work. I can't believe Buck and Amos is gonna be their 20th season together. Like, oh, good grief!
I know. Now it's starting to sound old.
I know we are. The time flies. My God. So. Yeah, so I can't wait to see we'll see what the CBS crew looks like, also to the college football crews for both Fox and ESPN. So I like this time of year. We're getting to see who are gonna be some familiar faces gonna be seeing. You guys that are freshly retired, and we'll see if Alex Smith does he land somewhere, or does Robert Griffin III decide he wants to perhaps play another season in the NFL. So I love this time of year. I know some people say it's kind of nerdy that for us to be excited about announcing crews, but I think they're a big part of the games. I know some people are, kind of, I think they're polarized of announcing, teams, and some broadcasters and even analysts are polarizing figures, but I find this exciting.
Yeah, I do as well. I know before we move on, college football, I know it's technically now less than a month away. I know you're excited. You're a bigger college football fan than I am, but I'm kind of intrigued this season since we will get back to normal. Hopefully there won't be as many games removed, being postponed or canceled like they were last year as we expected. But it looks like college football is going to start on time, and we're going to get those early season matchups. I know some folks don't like them, but to get your interest, like yours truly, that don't watch the sport that much, we do it because we have to do what we do here. But getting those early season matchups, that's what college football thrives off, and we're going to get that this year. I'm just happy to see that, unlike a year ago.
Yeah, and also too with the full stadiums. Again, we'll see how COVID is when we get to that point. But they may, in some states, they may limit how many people can be in the stadiums. We won't see like the packed stadiums, but they may do like distance, and they're probably may have to wear a mask and stuff. And I know some people will complain about that, but again, if you want to come to the games, that's what you're gonna have to do. So.
Yeah, and most of these colleges, including here in the state of Illinois, they require their students to get vaccinated. So
Smart, yeah.
we know that the majority of the student body will be vaccinated. We all know all players will be vaccinated. That's just if not all of them, at least the majority of them will be vaccinated. So I don't expect me to be too many problems when it comes to that. You never know, but I think things should be okay for college football.
And I think some schools will say, even the ones that don't, require vaccinations, they're going to say, look, you're going to have to wear a mask in the, in the stadiums, regardless. If not, you'll be removed. So, which is probably smart. I think this is sort of like a smart thing that they're doing. I know some people felt that, it's about, how dare they? But like these are free, these are private institutions and entities, so they can pretty much. It's up to them whether they want to look. You're lucky that they're not going to require you guys to get vaccinated. So you better just wear a mask if you're not going to get vaccinated. That's what we've been saying. So there you go.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Let's turn to your Olympic update, Lakeena. Simone Biles will be competing in at least one more event. A couple of her teammates won silver medals for floor gymnastics. Team USA, the men's basketball team, looked great against the Czech Republic.
That's the best that they've looked, in this whole tournament. They play
Yeah.
Spain. Yeah, they play Spain, and if on Monday we'll have we'll do our Siskel and Ebert recap of that. They'll play Monday night. Hopefully they should advance to the semis. They'll play either the winner of Australia or Argentina. They looked really good. I think now Kevin Durant is the scoring leader among Olympic men's hoops players. So congrats to him.
hmm
And look, I think they're getting hot at the right time. I think they're starting to mesh, and there's no reason why they shouldn't at least make the semifinals. I know they have. I know Spain has Ricky Rubio and the Gasol brothers. Yes, Paul Gasol,
hmm
41 is still top level, but there's no reason why they shouldn't win that quarterfinal. So they should be able to advance to the semis into the medal games. And again, it's going to be tough, but I think it's more than doable.
Yeah, we talked about this on our last episode, and Vince Carter of the NBC broadcasting, along with Bob Fitzgerald, who's a White Sox fan, by the way. He's the TV voice of the Golden State Warriors. They call him the Olympic Games for the men's side for NBC. Vince Carter brought up this point. We brought it up on our last episode. The United States defense, their intensity has picked up these last two games with both wins over Iran and the Czech Republic. They get into the passing lanes. They're pressuring guys when they bring up the ball up court. They're blocking shots. They're getting steals, which creates opportunities on the offensive end. And hopefully that trend continues because we all know that shooting can go cold. And USA has been shooting the ball from three with some consistency these last two games. Now, hopefully, they can continue throughout this knockout round. But if your shooting doesn't get hot, you got to rely on your defense. Right now, the United States men's basketball team is doing just that.
And they're protecting the paint better too. I've noticed in the last couple of
Yes.
games. So I think that's important. And look, hopefully they can do that against against a really good Spain team. And once they hopefully once they win that game, they can play in either Australia or Argentina. That's who they would play against. So should be fun. And look, I think they're getting hot at the right time. I think everyone's starting to
Mhm.
mesh finally, and I think they're getting hot at the right time. Which is look, I think in the Olympics, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the U.S. leads a medal count as of this recording. I think I saw it's like 64. I think right now for the U.S. Even though China is in the lead in among gold,
Gold. Yeah.
yeah, the U.S. is still leading among all the medal count. Shout out to Valerie Allman. She wins she wins gold in the women's discus, and she's actually the current record holder in the discus event on the women's side. So
Mhm.
that's American record, I should say. So I think that's the first time I believe that ever since the women's discus became an Olympic event that U.S. has won gold. So good for him, good for her, and thankfully, because so far in track they have not won a gold medal as of right now. So that's the first gold medal for the U.S. in a track and field event. So they've won some silver and bronze, but this is the first gold for the
Mhm.
U.S. Also, shout out to Caleb Dressel, who became the 5th American man to win 5 gold medals in one Olympics. He joins the likes of, ready for this, Sid, Mark Spitz. If you want to go back to the Winter Olympics,
Woo.
Eric Heighton, the first and only man right now to win 5 golds in one Winter Olympics. Matt Biondi, did that name sound familiar, Sid? And also some guy named.
You're telling your age now.
I know. Oh yeah, I know. Well, not that. I can't go that far. I remember the 88 Olympics. I wasn't born for the 72 nor the 1980 Olympics, so don't. I'm not that old, kids. But also some guy named Michael Phelps who did like 2 or 3 times. So also
Yeah.
the capper in that event. He helped break the world record in the men's 4x100 meter IM. An event that the U.S. has never lost in the Olympics since 15 for 15, of course, notwithstanding 1980 boycott, but they're 15 for 15, easy for me to say with a tongue twister there. But so congrats to him, to Mr. Dressel. Also to Robbie Fink and Katie Ledecky, both won the men's and women's 800 and 1500 meters in swimming. 31 laps in the 1500. Fink came out of nowhere like he did in the 800. Those last 50, he came right through and won gold. And Ledecky, of course, broke the Olympic record for the 1500, which she was the defending champion. And so she is still the queen of long distance swimming, and she is not done yet, folks. She already said that. So definitely writing her historic career. Jade Carey won gold in the floor exercise. Of course, she benefited again for Simone Biles.
Yeah, I saw that performance. That was a beautiful
It
performance.
was great. She saved it for this. That's her best defense. She didn't do well in the all around, but she saved it, and she knew when she nailed it that she knew she won it, and she was able to share that moment with her dad because, of course, with all the athletes not being able to have their parents, her dad's been her coach for a long time, so to share that moment with her father, you'll see it, on Monday night in the NBC primetime coverage. But just a beautiful moment. Also, too, well done by her. We'll see how Simone Biles does. Sunil Lee won bronze in the uneven bars, and also too, Michaela Skinner won, I believe, silver in the vault. So in the U.S., women doing very well in the gymnastics.
Yes, a couple of things before we wrap up this part. Before we close out the show, we have a couple more topics to cover. The USA women's soccer team, they lost again. Could this be the end of soccer for that group? Because they got a bunch of older players now.
It might be, and I got a chance to watch the replay of that match. Canada looked really good. This is the first Canada's first win against the U.S. women in 20 years. So they've been knocking on the door for some time, and then we talked about it a couple of episodes back that Megan Rapinoe, Carly Lloyd, they're well in their 30s now. I know Alice Morton is just like 32, but she's been on the team since she was a teenager. They got the experienced coach, so I think that caught up with them. All that inexperience, also too, like the legs, of the women. Look, they've done such an amazing job. That group, they'll be in the record books forever. But again, they just ran into a buzzsaw in Canada, so definitely deserved by Canada. And yeah, this could be the end of the road for that particular core.
But like I said, these things like this happens. Of course, it's disappointing. But like you said, that group of young women, they did amazing things for U.S. soccer here in the United States. And like you said, they'll go down the record books forever on the positive side. Now, for the USA women's basketball team, I know they had trouble in the first half with France, but they came out on top.
Yeah, they got to play Australia. I know they like the men, the women's basketball team for Australia beat the United States when they won the exhibition game. So I'm sure the American women like to exact some revenge. But I think Tarasi is out. I think she got hurt. So
that's going to be huge.
That might play a part. So we'll see. I mean, it should be an interesting quarterfinal for them as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I got more confident in the women than the men, but like you say, we'll see what happens. The men, should they get by Spain, I think they'll be okay. Like I said, the women, they did struggle a little bit. I did get a chance to check out some of the highlights of that, but I still have more confidence in them. They should be fine.
Yeah, I think they should be okay. Also, they won the U.S. won a silver in men's in a team, I should say, team equestrian with the jumping and the race, not race, but I think like they're circle around. So that's always a fun one. Also, too, some track events coming up on both the men's and the women's 400-meter hurdle final, I should say. So both the U.S. both the men and women are contend for gold. So that should be a fun one. A tough break for the baseball team, though. They lost to Japan 7-6 in the classic in extra innings. So bummer there for them. They won't be able to compete for a medal, but that was a nice a nice little showcase for the baseball team, because unfortunately they will not be in the next Olympics in Paris, but they will be back for the next Olympics after that in Los Angeles. So
yeah, 2028. Also congratulations to Chicago White Sox announcer Jason Benetti. He's calling games this week for NBC. And so I know Lynn Casper, the radio guy for the White Sox, he's taking over the TV side. Then Connor Mann, who's the pre and post game host for the White Sox, he's doing radio play-by-play while Benetti is away.
Also, a shout out to Robert Quinn's younger sister, Jasmine Camacho Quinn. She won gold in the 100-meter hurdles she represented Puerto Rico because their mother's from Puerto Rico. So, and Kenny, what's the girl's name? I forgot the girl's name that she beat, that she was the defending champion, but she the winning world championship day, but she ended up winning silver. But they were Camacho Quinn was just lights out those last couple of rounds. So congrats. We'll give a shout out to her and what Kenny Harrison. That's because she waited 5 years for this moment and she able to win silver. So it's still a nice showing for her, but also to a Quinn, showing that that Robert Quinn is not the only athlete in that family.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Last topic for the show before we close out. Did you catch the article over the weekend from our good friends at Awful Announcing? It was regarding the future of the Super Bowl. John Skipper, who's now working with the Dan Levitar for the, let me find it here, for the Meadowlark Media Group. Of course, that's Dan Levitar, former ESPN personality. He has his show independently and run through that company now. And in this article, they were talking about bringing up the idea, could we watch the Super Bowl on pay-per-view in the future? And John Skipper has some thoughts on that. Looking, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I know that DirecTV, the NFL Network is now on Hulu, but I know DirecTV has exclusive rights still to the NFL Sunday Ticket. I know if it opens up to these other cable outlets, they'll bring them more money. I don't know if that's going to happen right now, but we already pay money to watch these games on these cable networks via your cable package. If you have the basic or the exclusive sports package, there's all these tiers to watch sports. And as I said before, and shout out to Carmen DeFalco of ESPN Radio 1000 here in Chicago. He said this a long time ago. And shout out to, I know, just like you, Lakeena, not to sound sexist, but I know we have some hardcore female sports fans as well. But if it wasn't for cable, men wouldn't have it. If it wasn't for sports, men wouldn't buy cable, and that's the truth. But we also talked about this before. We're in the age of social media and in the age that the way that we watch television is just totally different. We just don't watch it on television anymore. We stream our sports through our mobile apps, through our laptops. And so people want and need options. I keep saying it. I'll keep on saying it because the times that we're living in right now. But call me crazy, Lakeena. Stranger things have happened, but I just don't see the Super Bowl, which is the number one television show in America over the last 20, 25 years, reaching over 100 million viewers. I know CBS with their streaming service combined with their over-the-air broadcast, they reached, I believe, close to 95 million last year. It's the first time it's been under 100 in terms of the Super Bowl in a while. But the Super Bowl is the number one show in America for the last 2 decades, perhaps 2.5. I just don't see why you're ruining that business trend and putting the Super Bowl on pay-per-view. I just don't see it.
It's not going to happen. I don't know what made him say these things where, oh, well, they might put, on a streaming service. Now, I could see that putting that as an option that maybe like, they like what CBS did this past season with Paramount Plus. They did put some of the access to Paramount Plus. I see people doing that. I mean, everyone's people are gonna pirate it like they usually do with all this other stuff. They're gonna find ways to do it. But again, people need options. And look, these networks know that yes, there are more people cutting the cord, and yes, there are more folks using streaming to watch their favorite shows or movies or what have you. But the tried and true fans are gonna want to watch sporting events on television, and you make more money with like the Super Bowl by putting it on television. And so look, as long as it gets over 80, 85, 90 million, I think networks are still going to keep doing it. I don't know what his mindset is for this. I read the interview he did. I just think that I understand why he said it, but it just seems like weird, like off the cuff. Like most people are not going to pay. They're going to do pirate it from their friends, their family members, passwords or what have you. And some people brought this up, and it's true. Boxing, stopped becoming mainstream once it went to more pay-per-view exclusive. That
was during the late 80s into the 90s.
Yeah, and that's what killed boxing. So there's no way that the NFL is going to use this, have it on pay-per-view when they can easily get 90, 95 million on the television. Now I can see it maybe being an option, Fox, whatever streaming services that they have, and once ABC gets them, I'm sure they'll have it on ESPN Plus or Disney Plus or whatever. But again, like you said, people need options, and I just, people have been saying this for years that, it's not the Super Bowl, it's gonna be the World Series, gonna be on pay-per-view. If the National Basketball Championship, the college, football playoffs are gonna be on the pay-per-view. We've been hearing this for like the last 15, 20 years. It hasn't happened yet. So I don't think it's not gonna happen now. So I just think that it's just a little bit silly for him to say these type of comments, and also commercials too. I mean, no, you're not. And why are you going to put all these commercials, especially if these companies are still willing to pay $5-6 million to have these commercials
for a 30-second spot
on television? You're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to do that on a pay-per-view stream. It's not happening. So I just think his comments are a little bit off base, but I might be in denial. But what do you think, Sid?
You pretty much took the words out of my mouth. And of course, toward the end of the article, I forgot who wrote it, but a lot of these networks, Fox, CBS, NBC, will have a lot to say about it too. Yes, all those networks have streaming services, but if you put it exclusively on those streaming services, you leave the broadcast TV out in the cold. That just doesn't make common business sense. It just doesn't. And like you said, Lakeena, will we see all those commercials on that pay-per-view? Probably not. Like you said, you're paying between $5 and $10 million for a 30-second to 45-second spot. That just doesn't make common business sense. So, maybe something along those lines may happen 20 years from now, but right now I just don't see it.
I don't think it's gonna happen, Sid. I think it just, like you said, it doesn't make any sense business wise. I mean, especially if you're a company, if you're Coca-Cola or Apple or Samsung, are you gonna pay $5 to $10 million to have your commercial, come here in the Super Bowl on pay-per-view? You may have to pay even more. So that's no way. You got it pretty good on the TV side, the linear TV side. So that's not going to happen. And you're not going to get 100 million people to tune in to watch on pay-per-view. You're not going to, how much is it going to be? It's going to be about 60, 79, 95. No, that's no way. Forget it. Forget it.
Forget about it.
Yeah, I know he's very savvy, but he's totally off base when it comes to this. I mean, if you're like you said, Sid, I mean, CBS, Fox, ABC, ESPN, also NBC, they're all gonna have something to say about it. So look, if you want to stream it, on NBC has it this year. I'm sure they're gonna have it where you can stream it on Peacock if you don't want to. If you're a cord cutter, if you don't want to watch it on NBC, they'll have that option. So as long as people have options, people will watch the Super Bowl. They're not gonna pay 80 or 90, $100 to watch a Super Bowl on pay-per-view. It's not happening. Not in this economy, no.
On that note, Lakeena, what are you looking forward to this week before we close out quickly?
Just the Olympics, real quick. Just the Olympics. You got the 400 meters, 400 meter hurdles. They're finishing up. You got the basketball. Hopefully, both the men and the women for the U.S. will have good performances and advance into the medal rounds. And and also to the baseball. Well, I want to see what the White Sox do. Can they kind of keep up? And also some of the matchups that we didn't get a chance to talk about it for baseball. The Rays looked really good this weekend.
Yeah, that's what the Red Sox. I sent a message.
They said, "Oh no!" And the pitching, it was a pitching that caught up. You were saying that you weren't a big believer of the Red Sox because they're pitching. The Rays just blew the doors off the Red Sox pitching.
Yes.
So now they're 1.5 up on the Red Sox in the division. So I'm interested to see if Tampa Bay can keep it up. They got Seattle for the early part of this week. Seattle looks really good too. So we'll see how they look and how they keep it up.
Yeah, and also too, we talked about the new Cubs, the former Cub players on their new teams. Of course, Chris Bryant had a couple of hits in Sunday's win over the Astros. Javi Baez made his debut last Saturday for the Mets, had 2 monster home runs. Of course, Anthony Rizzo's been tearing the cover off the ball as a member of the New York Yankees. So I want to see how those 3 former Cub players, can they continue to make an impact like this with their new teams as the playoffs push is getting started and is getting heated.
Also, you got a World Series preview coming up. You got the Astros and the Dodgers.
I'm definitely gonna be watching. Too bad it's only a 2 2-game
Yeah.
set instead
Yeah,
of
I
3 or
know.
4.
That would
That's the
be.
only thing that's disappointing.
I know, right? So no low loss between these two
Baseball,
teams.
what are you
So
thinking?
yeah, I know, right? It's good, but it should be fun. Look, you can stream it via your computer or whatever devices that you have. So you can definitely check out that matchup. That should be a fun one. Like I said, a World Series preview, perhaps, maybe, maybe not. You want to check it out? You'll see. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What about you, Sid?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the couple of out of market baseball series. Of course, the White Sox can they continue this hot streak before they played the Cubs at that holy cathedral we call the Dump next weekend. So you have 3 games against the Royals. For you White Sox fans who have a chance to go out to those games, please do so. Tickets are going fast, so you know where to get them. Go to their website for more information. You know where to get them. They're inexpensive. They're affordable. That team needs your support. They've been getting it already. They need your support some more. So for those that haven't been out to a Sox game yet, please do so before the playoffs. They need your support. They've been getting it. They could use some more. So if you haven't had a chance to go out to a White Sox game yet, please do so.
All right, absolutely. So on that note, you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
One last reminder: the 2 jerseys that are hanging up behind me for those of you watching on YouTube, and for those who are not, they're listening exclusively on the podcast. I have a Frank Thomas Southside City Connect jersey, and I have a Tim Anderson softball like jersey. You can check out those images on my Twitter and my Instagram at CK80. Once again, at CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can vote on which jersey should I wear for this upcoming Saturday's game between the Cubs and Sox at Wrigley. I'll be in attendance for that game on Saturday. Which jersey should I wear? It's that simple. Frank Thomas or Tim Anderson. Put your vote in the comments. Right now, Frank Thomas has a slight lead, but all you Tim Anderson fans who want me to wear the Tim Anderson jersey, please vote on Twitter and vote on Instagram at CK80. Voting closes this Friday at 11 p.m. Chicago time. Once again, voting closes this Friday at 11 p.m. Chicago time. So get those votes in on my Twitter and Instagram page.
All right. Also, too, you can follow the shows on War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So, the new episodes drop every week, every Monday night and every Friday night on YouTube. Also, every Tuesday and every Saturday on the audio side. That's, on Spotify, Anchor, Google, iTunes, iHeartRadio app, pretty much anywhere where you get your podcast. So
yeah,
just pretty much everywhere. So you can pretty much there's no escaping us, folks. Also, to give us a 5-star rating on the Apple. That way we can get a little bit of money doing this.
Yes, we need it. We appreciate your support. So that's War on Anchor on the audio side and on the podcast side. Also, you can follow us on social media. Excuse me. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WAR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
For Lakeena, I'm Sid. This has been Second City Sports. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you on the next edition of Second City Sports, and we'll have a major show announcement perhaps as well. For Lakeena, I'm Sid. This has been Second City Sports. Until next time, go Sox and holla!